So my story goes that my family comes from a Ukrainian background. So my mom, when she was about 16 years old, came into the United States, and my dad around not too long after that did as well. They didn't know each other, and they came and they got married in the United States, and I was the second son born into the family. We were raised in a Slavic Pentecostal background. So my whole life, I heard about Jesus. We went to church. It was something that was always natural. I just could remember clearly moments that I would have these kind of God moments in my life where things would just, he would speak to me, and that relationship you would have as a child that doesn't know anything, no other reality but Jesus. And when I was about 10 years old, we moved to a different state, and we ended up going to a conference a little bit after our move, and I came with a bunch of my friends. We just hopped in the car, headed over to Atlanta, Georgia. Didn't really know what to expect, just that I knew they were going to be praying for the filling of the Holy Spirit. And being raised Pentecostal, you know, that was something you had seen a lot. I couldn't really understand it much. In that meeting, the power of the Holy Spirit came upon us, and I just remember being so radically touched. I remember looking over my friends and seeing how they were getting touched by the Spirit of God. And I remember we would just stand in a group of holding hands, and we would just pray, and as the power of God was surging through us. We ended up going back to the church in Tennessee, and I remember how our lives were so transformed. We began to just get together just so we can sleep over one another's houses, so we can pray. We would study the Word. We would just do anything that we could to experience the presence of the Lord. At about 13, my parents started going through a divorce, and I moved with my mom and my siblings to the state of Washington. And I was in 8th grade at this time, moved partially throughout the middle of the school year. And I went through a lot of hazing. There was a lot of bullying and rejection during that time of my life. And I remember spiraling down in a place of depression and really didn't know how to handle a lot of the things I was going through. And so in the midst of trying to fit in and trying to find my identity, I began to start getting into fights, and started experimenting with drugs and smoking and all those sorts of things. And not too far down the road, at the age of 15, I ended up getting arrested and sitting a good amount of time in a juvenile system. And I remember during this time, as I was going through my court processes and realizing the weight of where I was, I started remembering where I was with the Lord, and before, how my relationship with God was. I began to remember times when people would come speak to me, and this burning would come inside my heart. And I remember getting on my knees, and I said, God, you know, I just need to give everything to you. A little bit after that, I remember praying and saying, God, I don't care if I have to spend the rest of my life here. I know that all I need is you. You're the one that I need. I ended up serving 6.5 months, and after getting out of the system, I began to go to church. And I had a lot of wounds and things that I was overcoming. And so through times of backsliding and coming back, and this whole struggle and trying to find my freedom, and at the same time having this call of God and giving opportunities to preach and minister in different avenues and services with the youth, and even getting to share my testimony and speak at different services. I remember having that opportunity, but people didn't know the struggle I was going through. And I remember getting really offended at the church at one point. And I remember telling God in my heart, saying, you know, I don't care, I don't want to be an on fire Christian anymore, because it hurts too much when you love other people and they don't love you back. I ended up turning my back and going back into the things that I was going through. And it was just all the things that I used to do before committing my life back to Jesus. I stepped back into that, and I realized really quick there was nothing there for me. But I felt like I've wasted my call. I felt like I wasn't even sure at that point. I don't know if I could be saved again. And it was so condemned, such weight on my life. My reputation was ruined with a lot of people. And I ended up coming back to a church service just because I realized, you know, this is not about people. I need Jesus, and I'm desperate. And I prayed, but I feel so much condemnation. I don't know how to get out of it. And in that service, the Spirit of the Lord just came in my life again. I remember I was sitting down, and I felt like God was saying, stand up, stand up. And I said, God, how can I stand up? Everybody knows what I did. Everybody knows, you know, what kind of hypocritical life I was living. How can I stand in front of everybody as if nothing happened? And the feeling left. And I said, God, if that really was you, if that feeling inside of me was you telling me to stand up, tell me to stand up again, and I will. And all of a sudden, just that power came in my stomach, and I hesitated, but then I stood up. and the power of the Lord filled me. And I felt like that 11-year-old boy again, just being filled, and I remember getting so set free. After this time, my friends and I, we just started going on the streets. I mean, there was a fire in us to just tell people about Jesus. We would gather together around our homes to worship and to pray, and just so we could be with one another. We would, anytime we would go out, you would always see somebody talking to somebody about Jesus, somebody praying for somebody. I remember the first time I went on an international mission trip to Nicaragua. I saw people getting the sick getting healed. I saw people getting set free from demons, and I saw all this stuff happening. When I came back to the States, I was like, God, you're the same God that was in Nicaragua. You're the same God that is here at home with me. What I saw there, I want to see this here. And so we began to really press into it. We began to go for it, and we really started seeing God move. I ended up going to a conference later, a couple of years down the road, and my life was transformed as I began to realize my identity in Jesus, and how the power of the Holy Spirit lives in me, and how He wants to live through me, how He's made all His blessings and His gifts and His nature available to be expressed through me, and things blew up. We started going, and we really began to see God move and transform lives. And I remember just a community being raised up. And now today, getting to do what I'm doing, I never even dreamed that I'd be able to do this. As much as I want and I love doing what I'm doing, I just know that from the beginning, it's always been about Jesus. And looking at my life and knowing, Lord, you've used me. You can use anybody. If you can rescue me, God, if you can take me out of all this, I mean, I know that any person listening can be used. And so that's a big thing in my life. And so I'm just thankful for Jesus.